Welcome on into the channel, Blood God Enjoyers. This is Spruce and Studs, and we have a very big and beefy release to review. In this one, we are specifically going to be taking a look at the Lord Invocatus atop of his Juggernaut, and we will determine whether this action figure is going to be a A5 piece of Wagyu steak or an over-grilled, charred, blackened, and dry piece of jerky. So join me in this review and we shall find out. First off, when handling this delicious piece of demonic steak, the first thing that you'll notice is this massive heft on this heifer. I suppose if you translate the money that you spend on this prime chaos god certified piece of prime rib into weight, you'll be very full and be very happy. When you are looking at the head, wonder if the chainsaw man took some cues off of this Juggernaut, or the Juggernaut took some design influences off of Chainsaw Man. The nose ring is also accurate to a lot of Angry Bull characters that are out there as well. And the mouth area looks as if this animal is breathing some sort of heat with this dark bronze color that is at the back of the mouth. What is really nice to see is that you can see some battle damage in the form of scarring, which you don't see very often in JoyToy figures, so I'm hoping that they incorporate this more into other figures. Then around this Mad Bull is a ring with a repeating pattern that is very loose. Sitting atop Kalguru's shoulders are some rings that I'm assuming that are supposed to allow the Lord to control this raging bull. There is some more nice battle damage that is dispersed throughout this area. However, what I find my eyes being drawn towards is this pauldron-like equivalent on this bull. The chaos bits on this action figure is really nice with this sharp pointy teeth here, and most importantly the World Eater symbol that seems to have a nice demonic glow to it in the background. However, I wish that this glow was more pronounced and brighter like the fires of Khorne's hatred. The chainmail fringe at the bottom of the pauldrons are a nice touch to the overall aesthetic of this figure. And then underneath that is some gunmetal colored musculature that gives you the feeling that this brute is full of power and rage. Finally, to accent the cornice, there are some spiked hoofs. Approaching the back half of this figure, there is clearly a worn saddle, seemingly to indicate that the Lord Invocatus has used this mount quite often. I suppose to help the Lord maintain balance above this lumbering hunk of metal and flesh are these stirrups in the form of jagged metal points. Just like in the front, the back hindquarters have the equivalent of pauldrons except that they are much smaller, but rock the Rage God symbol in the back, which has that nice characteristic demonic bronze glow. The hind legs pretty much follow the same patterning as the front legs, so I won't go into too much detail. And I suppose that if there is anything that is cute on this figure, it would be this nubbin for a tail right here. With regards to the bottom of this figure, there isn't too much to see except some rib cages with vents and this amalgamation of sinew as well as metal. And now we have the Lord Invocatus himself, otherwise known as Khorne's Thunderbolt. Perhaps one of the more unique defining features of this action figure is this one-of-a-kind Bloodstorm helmet, which supposedly allows the Invocatus to see the heartbeat of his potential victims of slaughter. There appears to be some nice highlighting on the top knot, but it's nice that you get to see plenty of highlights on this bone portion right here of the helmet, which is made of more flexible plastic. Focusing on the face of the action figure, it looks properly demonic with piercing green eyes, pointy ears, as well as a striking respirator design. You will also know that this Beef Rider has really pale bare skin around the neck area. With regard to the pauldron and arms, they bear a close resemblance to the Eviscerator Berserkers, with only having these half pauldrons to further accent these warp-fueled forearms. The right pauldron sports a modified blood god symbol, while the left one sort of looks like there is a skull that is bursting out of a fleshy type of base. I think that this pale, fleshy upper arm is quite striking to look at just because of the color. You can see the sinews of the muscle as well as some chaos-fueled augmentation as well. The breastplate of this lord has a callback to the Berserkers with the gratuitous usage of gold accents on the red of the armor. Interestingly enough though, I'm going to focus on this torso region because I wish I had this guy's massive six-pack instead of my personal one kegger. I'm happy to see that the pasty skin has some depth by form of some shading on the outside and then darker shading in the recesses of the six-pack. You can also see some decent musculature on the back as well. Now, with regard to the waist region, the front of the Bull Lord sports a simple undefined buckle, but when you turn this figure around, you can find plenty of seasonings in the form of this dangling ball and chain pendants on one side, and then on the other side there is an addition of the cornate pendant right here to prove his allegiance, as well as the holstered bolt pistol called Trickster's Doom. I don't know exactly when this action figure came during the development cycle, but I believe this is an improvement from the Berserker's armor, because you can see battle damage right here in the form of scarring, which is nice to see. There's also some scarring down here as well as down here. I really enjoyed the iconography on the knee area with this vicious looking World Eater symbol and this demonic looking skull. The spikes on the edge of this action figure's shin adds a nice feral touch to the armor as well. Now in 40K we don't really talk about backpacks because they're pretty much milquetoast on Primaris Marines, but this backpack is the complete opposite, with ghost pepper levels of heat everywhere. These skulls that sit atop the vents are awesome in that you can actually see cracks in the skull, which is very realistic looking. Then at the center of this backpack is a golden spine with a evil looking skull that is sitting on top of it that makes this area really metal, really edgy and primal. I'll be honest with you, this is probably one of the better looking backpacks that have ever been produced. Now, Coward's Bane is the specialized chain axe this future cowboy wields. I think that the overall look of this axe is unfortunately a bit too pale with the usage of the colors on it. The gunmetal color that is used on the axe head blends with the gray of the handle, so the only other color on the axe is the gold, which is then highlighted bright silver too, so this makes everything kind of blend in too much. Perhaps if some black bits were added, it would help the overall look of this chain axe to pop out some more. But aside from that, it is a decently wicked chain axe. And finally, we have Trickster's Doom, which is a kind of, well, mid-looking bolt pistol. There is really nothing that jumps out to me with regards to this weapon. You have your standard gunmetal in black colors, with the gold corn symbol to accent the blandness of the weapon. The magazine over here is removable, but it looks stubby when you pull it from the body of the weapon. In terms of movement for the Lord of Stake, there is no inhibition of movement at all, which is always great for action figures. However, since this Juggernaut is a new figure, I'm going to talk about the movement in depth. The tongue, as well as the jaw, can be moved up and down, but unfortunately, there is no lateral side-to-side movement that is achievable. The head right here can be rotated 360 degrees about that axis that you're seeing right now. However, lateral movement side-to-side is 45 degrees at best. This ring is completely free-flowing, so it can rotate 360 degrees. Now, the pauldron is on a ball and socket joint and actually can be rotated 360 degrees if you wish to do so, but if you do that, it usually tends to pop off like you see right here. This shoulder region equivalent can be rotated 360 degrees. It does make a very violent squeaking sound as you hear right now. This is the maximum extension of this lower leg part, and you can bend it in about this degree. There is also another pivot point down here that you can bend up like this, and you can also rotate this area around 360 degrees. And finally, with the hoof area, you can push it back like this, and this is the maximum extension back, and this is the max extension forward. And again, there's a separate ball and socket joint, so you can pivot this 360 degrees as well. I believe that there is a joint between the front region and this back region, but you can't really move the back region very much. This is the amount of motion that you can get. This rear pauldron area has restriction of movement due to blockages for this piston right here, and I will show you how this piston works. You can actually pull this piston out if you pull this pauldron out a little bit more, but thankfully you can reattach it. And the hind legs have pretty much the same amount of motion as the front legs as well. And finally, with the tail, it has some lateral motion that you can wiggle back and forth, and you can also rotate it around the axis 360 degrees. So you may be wondering, how tall is the Lord Invocatus compared to the Juggernaut? And I'll have to say the helmet right here just comes under the top of the shoulder of this bull. So this guy is properly tall. And this is sort of the overhead view of what this action figure looks like when he sits atop of this delicious piece of Angus beef. Well, folks, I can honestly say that we have a Blood God Department of Agriculture prime piece of ribeye steak right here. While I was reviewing this action figure of the Juggernaut, I was very impressed by the build quality. It is very solid. Again, has a bunch of heft to it. The most important thing that I was really impressed by is just the articulation of this action figure. I thought that it was going to have a lot of inhibitions of motion, but as I was operating all the joints, I was proven wrong. I really do like this piece of delicious beef. Now, on the other hand, we have the Lord Invocatus, which looks like an overglorified berserker. I know some people are going to be a little bit offended by that comment, but that's exactly what he looks like. He does have enough individual bits to set him apart, and he's also got this pretty cool, unique kind of flesh type of look to him. So as this is an expensive figure, is it going to be worth it for the average JoyToy action figure collector? And I would have to answer no, it is not. Again, the price of admission is quite steep, so I think that the only people that would really enjoy this duo of action figures are people who love the Blood God. So at any rate, if you are interested in getting this piece of beef as well as his handler, there's only one place to get it at, and that is at David Toys. The one quick thing I want to say about David Toys is that I have been using them exclusively for about 2 to 3 years now, and I have yet to experience any kind of issues with them that they could not solve. And those minor issues that have occurred, they have made everything smoothed over. And before you check out, do not forget to use the code SNS to receive 12% off of your purchase. And so, Blood God fans, this concludes the initial line of the World Eaters releases. I just hope that we will get more Chaos factions at this level of quality and design. And with that being said, thank you so much all for watching. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and I'll see you all in the next one.